A tip to the beginner: how to make money. For a beginner, to be sure of success, the chances are much better where longer hours prevail, for the reason that in the downtown places there are only a few hours trades, and while your establishment there must be large, your expenses also, in comparison, will be large. If you do not, in this place, have the rush at noon time from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. you expected, there will not be any opportunity for making up the profit at any other time during the day, for, as a rule, there is no morning or evening trade. Additionally, you lose all the holidays and Sundays, for businessmen are not downtown on such days, and, therefore, you can only count upon about 303 working days, out of 365 days in the year. The great drawback is, that you have to pay rent for the entire 365 days, pay wages to your help for the entire time, and that your running expenses are nearly as great as if you kept open every day in the year. There are some exceptions to this rule, of course, but such places are going out of the market, for the reason that the larger places will control the trade. On the other hand, if a place is started where there are long hours, from 5 a.m. till an hour past midnight, the chances are much more in the beginner's favor, for, supposing he should have a slack trade in the morning or about noon, he may still have a good afternoon or night trade, or both, while his expenses are much less, proportionately than the downtown places. This is what everyone must consider well, before he starts in the business. For instance, supposing a man finds a small place, where the expenses are $25 a day, and he is assured that he can take in $50 behind the bar. He may think this is a good business, but a little investigation will prove that it is not. The price to him of the liquor consumed will be about $20. This, added to his running expenses, makes a total of $45, and leaves him just a net profit of $5 for the day, that is, $130 a month, and $1,560 a year. But he must pay for his living, and if a family is growing up around him, the $1,560 will only pay ordinary expenses and give him a fair living. At the end of 5 or 10 years, he will simply have lived well, probably not have saved any amount of money, and, as he has grown older, will possibly be less able to work hard. But if he pushes up the business to getting daily receipts of $75, he will then be progressing. His expenses will still be only $25, but, like the liquor, he sells costs only $30, his daily expenditures are $55, which leaves him a profit of $20 a day. This is $520 a month, and $6,240 a year. If he works every day in the year, it is $7,300. Now, he can begin to save money, and, if shrewd and fortunate, may become a rich man. The point is, that it is useless to enter this business unless one can make considerable money out of it. So, if after concluding that everything is more or less in his favor, and one makes the attempt, the responsibility for failure or success rests upon him alone. The leading and important points are for the man to have, first, good principles, second, a good system, third, to be capable of hard work and do it, and fourth, to be obliging and polite to everyone. A beginner should not have in his place any card playing, or dice throwing, or any other special inducement, to draw trade, and get people to spend their money more than they would, if simply satisfying their thirst, for an ordinary, healthful amount of drink. Such inducements have both a bad effect and result upon business, especially on a new venture, because it doesn't look like a straight, legitimate way of getting the support of the public. During my many years of experience, I never allowed a pack of cards or a dice box in my places. I do not intend to say that people should do as I have done, for this is only a declaration of my opinion. There are some places where it is necessary to allow card playing, because there are resorts where people are in the habit of playing cards in a family manner. It is perfectly necessary that everyone in our line of business should be courteous and pleasant, not only to his customers and his help, but to all other people, even to the newsboy, boot-black, or begging woman. Try to have a good word for all. If anyone becomes a nuisance, get quietly rid of them. Don't refuse even an intoxicated man a drink, as everyone should do, in a harsh, rough way, but, by coaxing and persuasion, get him to leave the place. When necessary to use force, or to call the aid of a policeman, do it at once, but never act like a brute. If a man is successful in this line of business, as I hope all may be who engage in it, he should refrain from having what is popularly known as a swelled head. Success and failure alternate with each other, and boasting pride and bombastic demeanor should be left for the other fellow. To meet with success, the boss must lay out his hours of labor, and work as well within that time as any one of his employees do in their designated hours. He is a public servant and must be governed by a rule of his own making, to have certain hours, which should never be neglected, and in which he must attend to his business. He will find that it is work, work, all the time, but the more you work, the more profit you will realize from the business. Where there is a restaurant or hotel connected with the cafe, the proprietor should not, under any circumstances, allow himself to smoke. To one who is accustomed to doing so, there should be some special time found, when he is away or off duty, to indulge in this habit. It also creates a bad impression, if the landlord or proprietor sits in his place, and accepts drinks from his friends or the customers. Sometimes the party, with whom he is sitting, drinks too much and becomes noisy. Therefore, as a rule, he should never engage in a social act of this kind. The guests will naturally judge the proprietor's character by the company he keeps. There is a proper time and place for drinking, and the place is always in the cafe or barroom. But it makes a bad impression upon the patrons of a cafe, where there are tables and chairs, to find the boss often sitting down with a party to drink champagne or any other wine. This action should be avoided entirely, if possible, for one reason, that when the proprietor is thus engaged, he must be neglecting, to some extent, his business. Furthermore, the other customers, who take only 10-cent or 15-cent drinks, men of moderate means, will feel slighted, and their feelings may be hurt by seeing the proprietor too often engaged with these swell wine-drinking parties, and thus may come to the conclusion that he does not regard them or their patronage of any value. There are very few proprietors who can do a sufficient business with parties opening wine, to afford to neglect other customers. By so doing, he may drive away his best regular patrons. The daily 10-cent customer, as well as the occasional $5 guest, must be considered. The proper rule is, to avoid this drinking openly, in his place, as much as possible. During the wine drinking time, in addition to the loss of the correct supervision of his business, the proprietor hasn't the opportunity to give proper attention to his other customers, and may, therefore, offend some of them. It will create the same bad feeling, in another instance, when a man, in public business, goes out for the sport, having a horse and carriage at his front door, and the driver waiting, while the proprietor leaves his establishment with an attempt at grand style. Some of the customers, unable, at any time, to make such a display, will very probably remark in a satirical way, "There goes my money." All such exhibitions should be kept away from the public eye, especially about a man's business establishment. It is not intended to say that a man should not take a ride, occasionally, with his family, or dress well when he pleases, but he should not make an ostentatious display of the means or luxury he may possess. If all this is avoided, the man can make money by not accepting champagne treats and by not driving about in swell rigs, but, instead of all this, by remaining in his place, and working hard to keep his patrons pleased, thereby gain more, and thus improve his financial standing.